This is a trigger warning. In this episode, we will be discussing sexual predatory behavior against a minor. Today's episode is going to be a lot more serious than my usual content. I have constantly told you that I try to give out my best modeling tips and advices, and I do mean it. I believe it's my responsibility to try my absolute best to keep all of you informed so you can be aware of what is out there because knowledge is power. I interviewed Sydney Gard, 20-year-old petite model who is signed to Click Models. Right at the beginning of her career, though, 5 years ago, she unfortunately became a victim of a sexual predator who used photography and his success as a disguise to manipulate and abuse young girls and women like Sydney. Besides sharing her story, at the end we discuss ways we believe you can be safer and protect yourself from people like this. This episode in no way, shape, or form is used to make anyone scared about the modeling industry. On the contrary, the goal is to provide you with knowledge and tools that can make your experience a lot better. Feel free to listen with your parents as the information will be beneficial for them too. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you so much, Sydney, for being here on the podcast. How are you
Of course.
today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really happy that you're here. So I
Same.
guess, let's just start with the questions. First of all,
hmm
how long ago did you start modeling?
So I started modeling about 5 years ago now. I was 15 at the time, and I am 20 now.
Okay. And so right now you're like a sign model, right? Like you're signed to Click Models in Atlanta?
Yes, and I love them so much. I've been through four agencies. They're my fourth now.
Oh,
And so
really?
far, best experience. They are wonderful people, and they really care about their models as individuals, which is pretty rare in this industry.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's sometimes not even about like the name of the agency. It's about like your actual agents and, them caring about
hmm
you and you doing good and stuff like that. So I'm really happy that you're happy with them. That's amazing.
Yeah, me too.
So, but when you first started though, you didn't start with an agency, right? Like you started just, collaborating with photographers and, doing it for fun type of stuff, like the majority of us.
So actually, kind of what started my modeling career is I used to be really into photography. So my friends and I would take a lot of pictures of each other. And so I started taking and posting a lot of photos of myself. And actually, a local agency reached out to me and they were like, hey, we're having this open call. We're really new. You should come see if we're a good fit together. So I went and I actually signed with them really quickly. Since they weren't a very developed agency, they weren't the best. And no offense to them because they gave me a great start,
Mm-hmm.
but I quickly realized it wasn't a right fit. But I am very thankful for them because they were really the first ones that gave me the confidence to pursue modeling more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And so, pretty much after I signed with them was when I did my first shoot, but my first shoot was not through the agency.
Okay. So, it sounds like throughout the years from like what I've seen on your Instagram and stuff, like the agencies before Click, they were not really like helping you, not even develop you. So you were doing like things on your own and you were like, shooting with different photographers, building your own experience and your portfolio. And it was just like this, like your own personal project type of thing. Like I'm assuming nobody was telling you like you should shoot this type of looks or you should shoot with this photographer. Like you were just doing it on your own, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I do really like that. Even when I was doing freelancing in between shoots, I really did love having the entire control over what I was shooting and the kind of looks that I was filling my portfolio with. And honestly, my time I spent freelancing and just working on my portfolio is when I feel like I got the most experience. I learned the most about the industry and just making connections yourself. And it's good to also have those skills so that you're not entirely relying on an agency because there's only so much that they can do for you, especially when you're petite and you have to figure things out on your own and work that extra mile.
Yeah, exactly. This is something that like a lot of models have to do. Like we have to look for, the connections and photographers
Mhm.
ourselves. So I'm assuming the photographers that you were working with, you were getting that connections through like Instagram, right?
Oh, for sure. Social media has been honestly the most constructive and destructive force in my life because, every girl and just everyone in general goes through that whole thing of comparing yourself to other people, comparing
Mm-hmm.
your followers, your looks, just where you're at career wise. But at the same time, it's been so helpful because without it, I really don't think I would have made all those connections. And I don't think that I would be where I am now if I didn't have Instagram.
Same. I feel the exact same way. Like Instagram did open a lot of doors for opportunities for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you cannot just take any opportunity that is thrown your way. So this is why I wanted to have you on here, and I want to talk a little bit about an experience that unfortunately happened to you. And yeah, so could you tell us who AJ is and how did he get in contact with you? How did you learn about him?
So I actually found AJ on my own. He was on my Explore page on Instagram one day, and he had a ton of followers. He had worked with some really big name models. He just had amazing images. So I followed him. I liked some of his photos, but at the time I probably had like 2,000 followers.
Mm-hmm.
So in my head, I was thinking there's no way that this guy will ever notice me, but he has some really great work. So I was just liking his photos, and he actually did notice my account. He reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, you have a great look. I think we should work together. I could totally get you signed to some big name agencies. Like, this could be a really good working relationship." And so I was thrilled and I was like, "Oh my gosh,
He
this
said
is
that
it, my big break."
like right away.
Sorry, what?
He said that right away. Like, you know, like I don't know, like any other type of like exchange or maybe like first experience who you were as a person. He just like said like, "Oh, I have these connections with this big agencies and I got you."
Yeah, he definitely name dropped a lot in the beginning and also mentioned agencies that he was close to. So, because I had seen him work with really well-known models that seemed reliable, I was like, okay, yeah, he really does have these connections. This is a big opportunity. Like, I don't see anything wrong with this.
Yeah.
So it kind of just went that way where he would tell me all the things that he could do for me right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And like so what happened after he reached out to you and I mean like what did you reply? How was like the exchange after that?
so I was overjoyed because even though this was so early in my modeling career, I was like, oh my goodness, this is my opportunity. Like, I'm going to become so famous, get all these great photos and whatnot. So I was just really excited about the whole situation. And so there were a lot of red flags from the beginning, but I completely ignored them because in my head, I was just thrilled. And I was also really young at the time, and
How old
I
were
had
you?
never had any experience modeling, so I didn't get that.
How old were you?
I was 15. This was right at the beginning. Like,
Right.
this was my very first shoot, actually.
Okay. So you signed with that agency that you said you signed with
Hmm.
and then he messaged you.
Yeah, I had
Hmm.
followed him, but I'm pretty sure that he was the one that messaged me first.
Okay. And what happened after that? What other
So,
messages? What happened?
so we texted back and forth for a while, super friendly, I thought. He asked me for just selfies and bathing suits and stuff because he wanted to get a good idea of what my look was,
Hmm.
and he wanted like a no makeup selfie, and I sent it to him, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, this agency is gonna love you." I'm not gonna say the name because I don't think I should name drop like that, but
Hmm.
he was just like, "Yeah, they're gonna love you. Like, you have such a great look." And that was the end of our first conversation. And so I
Uh-huh.
was just really thrilled, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like they're gonna love me."
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. So he was like like telling you to send him like pictures, but at the time it was nothing because like a no makeup selfie sounds very like it's not alarming, you know.
Yeah.
It's fine. But like I mean the bikini photos maybe, but it was still like bikini. So it's not
Mhm.
like you know, like if you're 15 and you don't know anything about the industry, you're not going to be alarmed by,
Oh no.
you know.
Mhm.
So after that, like what were like the red flags that maybe you did not see at that early time, but now looking back, you notice like, oh, there was definitely not right.
So the red flags were actually very obvious, but at the point where I started seeing those red flags, we had already sort of built this weird friendship dynamic. And I trusted him, and I believed that he was going to get me those connections, that he was going to get me signed with a good agency, and that he was going to build my portfolio. So I really honestly tried to overlook the red flags. But basically, I think the first thing was when we shot for the very first time. he wanted me to take underwear photos. And honestly, at that time and that age, I didn't see anything wrong with that
Okay.
because I, growing up, always like looked up to Victoria's Secret angels. And I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I would love to do that. And it's just become so normalized for girls to be naked or half naked in the media
Mm-hmm.
that I just really didn't think anything about that. I didn't think about my age because I've always felt more mature than I am. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, heck yeah, like this is what it's going to take to get me famous, get me signed with a good agency. Like I'm here for it.
Yeah.
So I did take photos in lingerie and I was 15. I also didn't get all of the photos back from that shoot.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of interesting because I don't know if he still has those photos, but I know that he did and I did not.
Okay.
So that was kind of the first red flag.
Mm-hmm. And by
Later
the way,
on,
this
the other
shoot,
red.
sorry,
Sorry.
the way,
Oh no, go for it.
this shoot that you did, was any of your parents, did any of your parents got involved? Like, did your mom or your dad went with you? Were you they there? Did they see anything?
So my mom was at the shoot with me, and basically she was in the waiting area of his studio. It was set up so that it was kind of blocked off by two walls, and then you could walk through.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't really involved. My parents are very overprotective, so like they would, if they had seen me taking photos in underwear, they would have had a big issue with it, and they
Okay.
would have stopped me immediately.
They just
But
didn't know.
she wasn't right there, and I kind of told her to stay away because I was nervous, and it was my first shoot, and I didn't really want her watching me.
Uh-huh.
So I had asked her to kind of keep her distance.
Okay. So she had no idea you were shooting in underwear.
Yeah, no idea.
Okay. So what happened afterwards?
So after we shot, I kind of had a weird feeling. I kind of thought maybe I overstepped my boundaries a little bit and did
Mm-hmm.
more than I should have. But after that, I just went about my normal life. We texted in kind of a friendly way. He would call me like pet names like Boo and stuff like that. And he kind of gave off like a gay best friend type of vibe. Like, I don't want to
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
stereotype,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
but I think he tried to make it seem like he was so uninterested in me,
Mm-hmm.
but it was super friendly and like calling me pet names and stuff like that. So he was trying to build that trust and build that relationship
Yeah.
as most predators do when they're kind of grooming you.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't understand that, but he would be like, "Oh yeah, like next time we shoot, I'll bring alcohol, I'll bring vodka, like we can do shots and stuff so you're more relaxed." And I was like, "Haha, yeah."
Okay.
But I still like in my head I was like that seems a little weird, but I was like, "Oh well, like he just wants me to have a good time." And so I didn't really understand what was going on.
Okay. You did not see that like huge red flag. Um,
Mm-mm.
okay. And like, but did you like when you say like haha yeah, like were you like uncomfortable?
I was uncomfortable because I was like, my parents would not be okay with this. Anyone else that I told about this would think it's weird.
Uh-huh.
But I just kind of brushed it off because I wanted to think that he had good intentions, even though he didn't.
Okay. And now that you're saying that, like you like when you thought of telling other people, they would say something.
Mhm.
Did by this moment, have you told anybody what was going on, or did you just keep it all to yourself?
I kept it all to myself. There was a point where I did tell my friends some of it, but I even told them in a joking way. And I was like, haha, it's fine though. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not a big deal.
Uh-huh.
And I just really tried to brush all of it off because I didn't want to accept the fact that he was being a predator.
Okay. Yeah, so what happened after that? Like did you actually like do the shoot, and did he actually bring alcohol?
We actually didn't ever shoot again because more red flags kept coming up.
Uh-huh.
One following after that was that he told me he wanted me to shoot lingerie with one of his friends.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the biggest red flag to me because I was like, I am 15. His friend that he was telling me about was, I think, 30 at least.
Okay.
And that's not right.
Yeah.
And even though I tried to brush everything off, I knew that that was kind of like a big no-no.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had said that to me. And then he was messaging me and he said, "Hey, my friend wants me to send you his dick pic." And I was like, "What?" And like, he sent it to me. And here's the thing though, I don't think it was his friend's. I think it was his photo.
Okay.
And I think he was trying to send that from a point of like, "Oh, it's not mine, but what do you think about my friend's photo?" Like wanting me to
Uh-huh.
like have an honest response. But so that was a big issue.
Yeah.
I did know immediately that that was really bad. I did laugh it off because once again, I kept thinking that he did have good intentions and that he really would help me get somewhere in this
Mm-hmm.
industry.
Yeah.
And I understand now that that was not right at all. But I was 15, so I did not
Yes,
really get that at the time.
of course.
Yeah.
So what happened after that? Like now that you saw this like really, big red flag and you obviously felt uncomfortable, like what did you do next? Or what did he do next?
So he was still texting and calling me regularly at this point and being super friendly. He would ask me a lot of questions, like very personal questions
Mm-hmm.
about my virginity and stuff. And one time I told him that I was still a virgin and I was saying that that was something I thought was really special and I was waiting to do anything. And he was like, "Oh, you just need to lose it. It's not a big deal." And he kind of said that stuff to me. And I
Uh-huh.
think he was conditioning me to think that that stuff was not a big deal and
Yeah.
that all of the stuff he was saying was completely normal.
Uh-huh.
But even at the time, I knew that I didn't agree with what he was saying.
Yeah.
So that kind of kept going on for a little while. And actually, I was getting my phone fixed one day. And then, so I didn't have a cell phone and I left my computer at home and I messaged him from my computer and I was like, "Hey, I want to have a phone for a little while. Like, don't message me." And I went to my friend's house. And so I left my computer at home
Mm-hmm.
and my parents went on my computer while I was gone and they saw all of the messages with him. And basically, my parents right away were like, "This is not right. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to try to get him arrested." And they shut it down so quickly once they figured out what was going on. And they were like, "Why didn't you tell me? Like, why didn't you talk to us about this?" But there was a point where I just felt so stupid for ignoring everything.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that what I was doing was not right by letting his behavior continue, but I didn't know how to shut it down at that point. And I was still trying to be positive and make it seem like it wasn't as big of a issue as it was because I just didn't want to admit that.
Yeah. No, I completely understand. And it's just like you're trying to like I don't know, like make it seem less than what it
Mhm.
was and also like kind of like black out that part, and like I don't
Mhm.
know, it's just like a weird way of like coping mechanism, I think maybe.
Mhm.
So you're mentioning that your parents, found out about him and so what they wanted to do? Like what happened? Like when they found out, how did they talk to you? How did you like react? How did they react with you?
So both my parents were very emotional talking about it, which is understandable. um,
Yeah.
but they wanted to go to the police with the information, and my dad had screenshots of everything that he had said, and he was really ready to take action against him. But I was a sophomore in high school at a very small private Christian school where everyone kind of knew everyone's business.
Mhm.
And I was really embarrassed about the situation. So I basically begged them not to do anything about it just because I was afraid about how it would reflect on me. I thought that people my age would also think the same thing that I had thought, that I was stupid for letting it get to that point. So basically, because I felt so guilty and ashamed, I didn't let them do anything about it.
Yeah. I like I said, I understand. Like I've seen so many like similar cases and it like
Hmm.
everyone feels the same way and it's so like crazy because you shouldn't feel that way. Like it was definitely not
Hmm.
your fault. It was like literally you had a predator like coming after you. And they're very smart. They know how to manipulate you. They know what to say.
Hmm.
They're preying on literally your dreams of becoming a model or like whatever it is in any other situation, but they're literally doing that. And like,
Hmm.
yeah, I understand how you felt and the need
Hmm.
of like not put it out there because you felt like everybody was gonna
Hmm.
know that you were dumb and like it was just like it's
Hmm.
completely wrong because that's how this type of people get away with it, because you don't say
Hmm.
anything, you stay silent, and then the next model, the next girl, unfortunately, like similar situation. But there's obviously there's no need for you to feel bad about it. Like it's
Hmm.
normal, and you're not alone, and all that stuff. Um, so after you told your parents that to not please go to the police and go after him legally, what happened?
So I just kind of really suppressed all of that had happened. I just tried to forget about it and I pushed it so deep that I really did not process or heal from any of that trauma. And it basically all came up a year later. I don't really know what happened. I think it was when I was writing an essay for one of my classes, and that experience came up in my mind, and basically everything kind of fell apart at once. And I had this big meltdown and I was crying about it. And luckily, oh, wait, sorry. My camera just like
Oh.
shut off. Okay, sorry. But so I just had a big meltdown about it, but luckily my friends were there for me and I wasn't alone dealing with that. But it was very unfortunate because around this time when I was starting to process all of the trauma, a girl from my school started telling people that I was blowing a photographer for agency contracts and for free photos. And basically she had heard about part of this story and was turning it into that. So that was very hard because that made everything a lot worse. That was not the situation at all. And it just made everything a lot worse.
And great, like people in high school, they're terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, what about AJ? Like, what happened to him?
So he actually is pretty much entirely off the grid now because even though I didn't want to take any legal action against him, I have been very vocal in talking about this because I am not the only girl that this happened to. There are upwards of, I think, 50 girls right now that have openly spoken about this since I worked on the article for Dame magazine, and it was written by Samuel Braslow, and we did a series of interviews over, I think, about a 6-month period before the story was released. And his story was about predators in the media, and it ended up turning into a story basically only about AJ because once he started talking to me, he found so many other women that had similar stories. And honestly, some were a lot worse and had to do with being drugged, waking up, not knowing what happened, him physically abusing them, and just so many horrible stories like that like have all happened, and he's gotten away with it every time. This was the first time I think someone has really been outspoken against him.
By the way, just for reference, how old do you think he is, or how old do you know he is?
I actually do not know. If I had to guess, I would say probably late 30s or at least early 40s by now.
That's insane.
Yeah. And most of the girls were very young and probably underage also, or early 20s.
Yeah, I believe that because when you're young, you don't know what, an older man is telling you and what he's doing to you. You just believe in the authority, believe that somebody that's older than you, is being honest with you. And if they talk to you nicely, then they're a nice person. And I think it also goes with this whole, like, when we're young, we're always told, like, listen to your elders. And that's not always the case.
I completely agree with that. And I think these upcoming generations are being more vigilant about all of that. But I just think our parents' generations didn't really know about this kind of stuff because they also didn't really know about social media and how all of that worked. So it's just completely different now. Yeah,
no, for sure. And this is why I wanted to have you here on the podcast and share your story because I have so many like young followers, like early 20s and teens following me, and they're all like, not everyone obviously, but at that age you're desperate to have any opportunity that crosses your way. And if somebody seems very legit, or they have a ton of followers on social media, like happened to you, or they have really nice photos, you feel like that's your one and only chance, and you just have to accept whatever they tell you to do or to bring or whatever it is. And I just want to put this information out there so, girls are smarter about what's out there, and they can protect themselves. Unfortunately, like instead of, teaching people not to do this type of stuff, it's more about learning how to protect yourself from this type of situations. So AJ completely disappeared. Like, he shut down his Instagram and any other social media platforms, and you just have not heard anything about him from since that happened?
I have not, but since I worked on that article, I have had a lot of women come forward and reach out to me, be like, hey, this happened to me too. And it's so nice to hear someone talk about it. I'm glad that he's being put under pressure. But the only thing I have actually heard about him is that he's probably living in Florida right now with his brother.
Mm-hmm.
And his brother, I think, oh, actually, I probably shouldn't talk about that because his brother's pretty well known. But,
Oh,
but yeah,
dang.
so he's just living in Florida right now, very under the radar. As far as I know, does not have any social media. I don't think he's really doing much photography anymore, or at least not in like the modeling industry.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it like one day he'll be able to, get in trouble legally? Like, I don't know.
I mean, I think if any girl wanted to come forward and really take action against him, they could. I know that I still could. Um, but I just think it's hard. It's really hard being a female and ever accusing anyone of something like that. And obviously, you get put under fire for that too, a lot of times. And there's so many people that don't believe you. But I think easily there's a very strong case against him right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how, but yeah, I'm assuming somebody has to press charges for it to
Hmm.
actually like, something to happen.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's crazy how some people, but I'm glad that, the word got out and people know
Hmm.
about his background, so hopefully he'll not, do anything to anybody,
Yeah.
but now that like this has happened to you, so how long ago so this was 5 years ago?
Hmm.
Okay. So like now that you went through this, how have you been able to like, cope with it or like um work on overcoming it, if you still are?
So honestly, just continuing modeling and having good experiences and good connections has really helped me a lot. I know that there's a lot of creepy people in the industry still, but I have met so many amazing people, and modeling has just been an amazing journey. It's given me so much confidence, so much like ability to make those connections. But I will say therapy also helps a lot for everything in life, especially for this. So just the usual. I've been still kind of coping with it. Also, talking with Samuel Braslow as he was writing the article for Dame about this story was
Mm-hmm.
actually very therapeutic because he was the first person to really be like, Sydney, this was not your fault. Like, he was so much older than you and he took advantage of you, and it's not your fault. And that was the first time that I ever really felt like, oh, it wasn't my fault. He's right. So honestly, that is what has helped me cope the most. And I absolutely love the writer. He's just a fantastic guy, but that has helped me so much.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so happy that you still turn into modeling and you just try to like have really good experiences, and
Hmm.
it still has helped you, grow as a person and become more confident, because I feel like I don't want people to listen to your story and then think like modeling is bad, or
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna be scared,
Hmm.
or like I'm not gonna like throw myself out there because this type of stuff can happen. And it's not
Hmm.
about that. Obviously, it's about learning what's out there, like being aware of your surroundings, basically,
Yeah.
and then just being careful. But as long as you're careful and as long as you know what you're
Hmm.
doing, who you're talking to, and take precautionary steps, you're gonna have an amazing career. Like you're gonna have
Hmm.
fun. You're gonna grow. Like people shouldn't um be scared to like enter this career, because
Hmm.
as you said, like you're still very happy
Yeah.
modeling and growing and still collaborating with photographers and doing what you
Hmm.
love to do. So I'm really happy to like hear that from you and hear that you're like, you know um that you have coped with it and you have taken the steps to like, be in a very better mental state.
Hmm.
um so now that you went through all of that, what would you tell your younger self if you could in that time?
Um, so I guess what I wish I could tell my younger self and just kind of all girls in general right now is never go to a shoot alone, especially in the beginning of your career. I think at the point now where I do feel safe being on my own, but it's really important to have someone there in the beginning. You don't understand the red flags, you don't understand any warning signs. It's also important to share your location with people just in case something does happen. You always want to make sure there are people to hold you accountable. And I just, I wish I could tell myself to be more careful, but also I do think that I learned a lot from this experience. So I don't have a lot of negative feelings towards it anymore. I kind of released all of that. But I just wish I could tell myself not to blame myself for what happened too, because it took me a long time to really stop feeling that guilt. It wasn't probably until this past year that I really stopped feeling guilty for it. And
Mm.
every once in a while too, I look back on it and cringe a little bit because I think that I could have handled it differently. But I mean, it's life. You can't always make the best decisions. Everyone makes mistakes, and we all wish we could go back and make better choices.
Yeah, I mean, like the writer told you, like 100%, like it was not your fault. You were literally
Yeah.
15, and this
Mhm.
man was like 30, 40. Like, I it's just
Mhm.
like it's there's no way. Like your brain is not developed
Mhm.
enough to be able to handle that situation and like see and act up. Like it's like it was not your fault, and you shouldn't feel ashamed. But I
Mhm.
understand like the
Yeah.
feeling though. Like I understand you thinking that it was your fault and you were not smart enough
Mhm.
when in reality it was just not. You were not old enough to understand
Yeah.
what was going through.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome. So I wrote other things that I think are important for a model,
Mhm.
for an aspiring model to, like like think about before they engage with a photographer. And like you said,
Mhm.
one of the very important ones is like never go to a shoot on your own. Always,
Mhm.
always take your parents with you. And this is something that
Yeah.
I repeat to models whenever they say like, "Oh, I want to model, but my parents don't let me," or like, "I don't know what to tell my
Yeah.
parents." I'm like, you have to have your parents involved, and it's
Mhm.
not just about the legal part of it, because like they need to sign paperwork or things like that. It's just
Mhm.
for your safety, because
I
things
completely agree with that.
yeah, because things like this can happen with agents, it can happen with clients,
Mhm.
it can happen with photographers. So you really need to have your parents by your side, even after you're over 18.
Mhm.
Like I started modeling at 19, and I had my dad come with me to every single shoot for the first few years. For like first, I think the
Mhm.
first 2 years, he will be with me at all times. And I'm very grateful for that. But, I was over 18 already. I was an adult, and I still
Mhm.
had my dad with me. And I think if you're still like around that age, you still should have your parents with you, because your brain stops developing. Like there's a part of your brain that stops developing until you're like
Mhm.
25. And that's the
Yeah.
part of the brain that's like the rational part that helps you take good
Mhm.
decisions and see the consequences of your actions. So if you're under 25, that's when you can fall in this type of stuff. So it's really, really important that you have,
Mhm.
an adult with you. So the other thing that I wrote too is to check the photographer's work. So if you see the
Mhm.
photographer's work and the majority of the stuff is things that you wouldn't be comfortable in shooting, then I
Mhm.
wouldn't engage with that photographer,
For sure.
even though he has a big name or he has a very strong following on Instagram.
Mhm.
If you're not comfortable with what you're already seeing in the photos, might as well not even like, reply to his
Mhm.
DM or contact him yourself, because sometimes you think like, oh my god, his photos are so cool, I want to do like something different, let
Yeah.
me like convince him, and that might
Mhm.
not work out.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And there have actually been a lot of girls that I'm friends with now in the industry, like for my agency or just however I've met them, and they have all told me stories about how they've shot things that they regretted shooting right after. And they shot things that were normal to that photographer. They shot things that were his style, which was revealing.
Mm-hmm.
But all these girls have had similar situations where they've taken photos and then regretted it. But at that point, if you've signed a model release, they can do whatever they want with the photos. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, you're not entitled to ask them to take them down,
Mm-hmm.
which really sucks that it's that way, but it is. And I've been in that situation too, so it's definitely a safe bet to just not engage with the photographer at all if their work is too revealing for you.
Yeah, exactly. Because you
Hmm.
think oh, I might be fine. Like, I'm gonna tell him that I'm not gonna do this or that. We're just gonna get to this point. But when you're already
Yeah.
shooting and you're already like in front of the camera and he kind of
Hmm.
hints to do a little more and do a little more, you give in and then
Hmm.
you regret the whole experience. So might as well
Yeah.
just like steer clear. Another thing that I wrote is also that the amount of followers, the blue check mark, how
Hmm.
big their name is in the industry, or how professional they seem online doesn't mean anything,
Hmm.
So don't take that as
Yeah.
your like, I don't know how you say it. Is it like the blue star? No, it's a blue star. Northern Star?
Maybe.
I don't know, but just don't take that. Just take that as like what will tell you like, oh, like this is gonna be safe for me,
Yeah.
because like they could be they could have a million followers and
Hmm.
be a predator. So don't rule that out and don't think like, oh, I'm not gonna bring my parent with me to the
Yeah.
shoot because this photographer is very big. And another thing is that if you say that you're gonna bring someone with you and they say like, oh, like you can't, or like I'm more comfortable if it's just me and you in the room,
Hmm.
no, run. That's a huge
I was
red
literally
flag.
about to say that because I had that happen recently.
Yeah.
So, my parents do still come to me with shoots if it's a new photographer or a male. Honestly, I know that females can still abuse others. I'm not saying that that doesn't happen, but I do feel safer when I'm shooting with women. I've never had a bad experience with a woman. So if I'm shooting with the new male, then I still have my parents come with me and I'm 20, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, it's perfect.
But there was a photographer that I had shot with last year when I was
Mm-hmm.
19, and he basically asked me again to shoot recently. And he said, "Can you come alone? I don't feel comfortable having your mom there." And I was like,
Then we're not
why? And
shooting.
he was, yeah, he like didn't have any reason for it either. And then come to find out, I talked to one of my photographer friends about it, and he told me that this photographer has slept with a lot of women in Atlanta. And I don't know the context about whether that was consensual or not, but basically that is a huge red flag. And I am very glad that I did not shoot with him, because anyone who asks you to come alone, there's obviously a reason why they want you alone, and it's
Yeah.
just never worth it.
Exactly. Like
Hmm.
if they're like, oh, like I'm just more comfortable, like, just shooting on my own, or like whatever excuse they come up with. Because sometimes you say like, oh,
Hmm.
can I bring my boyfriend? That's another like perfect person to bring with
Yeah,
you. They're like, oh no, like boyfriends get jealous or
I
whatever
hear
it
that
is.
all the
Yeah, and it's just like,
time.
dude, then like no, like you're
Yeah,
better off not shooting with this person. Um,
for sure.
yeah. So, another thing that I wrote, it was like, even though he doesn't show inappropriate photos or too revealing photos on their Instagram, that does
Mhm.
not mean they're not shooting it behind the
That's true.
scenes.
Hmm.
So, another reason why you should always bring someone with you, and you should always agree to what you're shooting beforehand, because that doesn't mean he doesn't shoot that the kind of stuff, because it could be
For sure.
for their own like pleasure. So,
Hmm. Yep.
yeah, tough.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What else did I wrote? Oh yeah, also like to remember that there's like hundreds to thousands of hundreds photographers out there. So if
Hmm.
one of them doesn't want you to bring someone with you, or one of them is telling you to do something that you're not comfortable with, then just say
Hmm.
bye. There's
Yeah.
there's so many, like millions of photographers out there. So if this one doesn't want to agree to what you're
Hmm.
comfortable with, then just go move on to the next one, because this is not
Yeah.
worth it.
I completely agree with that. And that kind of goes back to what you were saying about how amount of followers doesn't matter, verification doesn't matter, who they worked with doesn't matter. Because a lot of times, too, the people with the most followers are the ones that get away with stuff.
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
if they're a big person and well known, a lot of times people are too afraid to come out and say anything about them. And I completely understand that, unfortunately, but that's just how it is. So I feel like it doesn't matter who they are, they're always potentially a risk.
Yeah. Like a perfect example is, I can't remember his name, but there was this guy who used to shoot Kim Kardashian, and he
Oh,
had,
I heard about him.
yeah, and he had 1 million followers on Instagram, and I think he was
Hmm.
verified, and he did so many horrible things to, like, I don't even know the amount of girls. It was probably in the hundreds.
Hmm.
And he used his connection of, like, oh, I shoot for Kim Kardashian and I have so many followers
Hmm.
and I know these big names, to literally, like, manipulate you to
Hmm.
agreeing to this, like, wrong eventful shoots.
Hmm. Yeah.
um yeah. So and then the last thing that I wrote was that, if you just want to know, if you're, like, completely unaware and you want to know names of
Hmm.
photographers that have been checked, no, not checked, have been, the people know that they're predators out there, and it has
Yeah.
happened more than once, they should go to Shade Model Management's Twitter,
Yeah.
and you are gonna see a really, really, unfortunately, a really, really long list of
Hmm.
photographers who had done really bad things to models.
Hmm.
And I saw AJ's name on that list
Oh,
because, yeah,
really?
because I just checked it.
Ooh. It's been
Yeah.
a minute since I looked at it, but I actually did know and have worked with a couple of the guys on the list, which I've never had bad experiences with them, but
Mm-hmm.
I do trust the females that are coming forward and
Yeah.
wanting their names on the list. I'm always going to believe a female about any experience like that, but it's unfortunate. It's a very long list.
It's a very long list, but yeah, it
Yeah.
shows you their name, and I
Hmm.
think their, even their Instagram handle, if they have it. So
Yeah.
if anybody that's listening wants to, have that list, screenshot it, because the first time she published
Hmm.
it, like, the person from the account published it, she had to put it down,
Hmm.
because she was, like, scared of, like, something was going to happen to her, because she actually started getting,
Yeah.
like, threats. But she has it up on her Twitter now.
Okay, good.
So it will be a good thing for you to go, like, whoever's listening, to go right now to Twitter, screenshot all of the names, and just have it saved, because you
Hmm.
never know if she will have to put it down again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, like, I really want models to, like, listen and not believe that everything that shine is gold,
Hmm.
you know, and just to be
Yeah.
safe. And like I said, like, I this, like, modeling is an amazing career. It has made
Hmm.
both of us really happy. We had
For sure.
incredible experiences. I've met really, really good people. There's, the good outweighs the bad.
Hmm.
Always. There's more good in the world than there's bad. But obviously, the bad stuff is very loud. And
Yeah.
but believe me, like, if you're staying safe, if you're taking the necessary precautions, if you're having your
Hmm.
parents involved, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna enjoy the industry, and it's gonna be a great, great time for you. Anything else that you would like to add before we're done?
Well, first of all, about making connections and stuff, like if I hadn't gone into modeling, I would have never had any connection to you. But like I always see everything you post, like your Instagram and your TikTok, and I just love it because I feel like you are such a good role model to women. It's just great to see that. But also, I was going to say that another thing you can do to be more cautious before you ever shoot with anyone is to ask models that have worked with them, DM them on Instagram and be like, hey, what was your experience with this person? And sometimes the girls won't respond or whoever they worked with, but
Mm-hmm.
it's good to message multiple people and have
Different perspectives.
recommendations.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's good to hear about people's experiences. Make sure that they had a good experience before you even think about engaging with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a
Mhm.
great, great advice.
Yeah,
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sydney, for
of
sitting on the
course.
podcast and sharing your story.
Mhm.
Um, it's gonna be very, very helpful to the women and girls that listen to it.
Good.
And I know it's not easy to share it, to talk about it,
Hmm.
but I just want to know that you and the listeners know that you're very, very strong.
Thank
You're very, very
you.
strong woman, and you should be very proud of yourself. So, yeah, so thank you so much for being here. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And yeah, until next time. Bye.